Welcome everybody, I'm excited for today. We are starting to build the actual controller. So yay, we are getting to the end of this thing. Great job so far. So what we're gonna do today is we're gonna actually start modeling the controller based on our prototype. So I've got my cardboard here. That's the front of it, that's the back of it. I've got some notes on the front. And I've got the layout of all my components of roughly where they go on the back. I'm gonna use this as a starting point. Hopefully your controller is something different and interesting and you've created something really cool that you're going to now create in 3D. So you won't be making the same controller as me, and that's okay. I'm just going to show you the process for laying it all out. In this video, we're going to create basically the layout of all the components on the face. And in the next video, we'll start with actually creating the actual outline, but right now we're just doing the components. So I'm going to create a new sketch here. Actually, before I do that, let me save this. So I'm going to hit save up here. I'm going to save mine in my ROV folder, and I'm going to call this controller. And on mine, I'm going to call it video version. You don't need that part on yours, and just hit save. All right, I don't need this side panel anymore. So I'm going to create my first sketch on the bottom layer, the bottom plane. And yeah, we got to start adding components. So for me, I'm going to use this breadboard at the top. I'm going to make it centered on the controller. So I'm just going to grab a rectangle. And this one, I'm going to make it a construction line because it's just a layout. I'm not actually cutting a hole or extruding this thing. I'm going to grab a breadboard, grab a pair of calipers, and just measure the length and width. Mine is going sideways. There's no reason to be precise here. I won't mention the numbers because I want you to do your own measurements and see what you get. So I'm just going to put this kind of somewhat in the middle-ish. I'm going to reposition everything in a little while. And then I need my 9-volt battery. My 9-volt battery goes next, so I'm going to measure the width and the orientation I want. Again here, I'm just rounding up these numbers. Maybe you're putting your battery this way, maybe putting it this way, whatever way you have it. You have to draw an outline for it so we can space it around. And then I'm going to do the Arduino next. And let's see. And on this one, on the Arduino, I'm not actually including that silver port in the measurement because I want that to be sticking out of the controller. So I actually wanted its location to be kind of on this green edge, so just the green board I'm measuring right now. Okay, that's my Arduino's in, and then I need another breadboard. Now, for this second breadboard, the one that's going to be for the RS485 module, I want to actually measure the width of the breadboard with the module in there, because the whole thing has to fit inside of the controller. So this one there. Mine kind of goes that way, so I'm going to do another one here. So these are my components. Oh, and then joysticks. Almost forgot my joysticks. Measure those real quick. I need 2 of those. Now, instead of making the second one, because I want the joysticks to be symmetrical, like if one's 4 inches from the middle, the other one's 4 inches from the middle. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to come here, I'm going to create, and everybody should do this part, just a center line. I'm going to start here at the middle of my sketch and create a vertical line going straight up to some point past the things I've placed in. This is going to give me a center point for the controller. So now instead of creating another rectangle over here, I'm going to actually mirror this one. So I'm going to come up here with the mirror tool, and I'm going to say I want to mirror all 4 of these lines. And I'm going to select my mirror line to be the center point. And what that does, it creates the second rectangle right here. And you might be like, well, why not just draw it over there? And here's why. When I go to move this later, notice how they both move together now. So they stay symmetrically, they stay centered on that middle line. All right, now I've got a lot of lines on the screen. So what I'm going to do is take all my measurement lines and drag them inside the boxes that they're measuring. That way it doesn't look like the thing that I'm doing is bigger than what it really is. So I'm just going to take all of these and put them right inside. Now I can kind of see where all these components are and how big they are. So I'm going to start scooting them around. I'm going to leave a couple centimeters or a couple millimeters of separation in there. And for example, I want this breadboard to be centered on this center line. So one thing I can do is I can come here when I want to center a line on a line. I can grab a point tool, and then I can find the center point of this line that I want centered. So right there. See how it's close to center but not quite? And now I can come here and grab the coincidence tool. I'm going to zoom in so you can see what's happening. I'm going to click on this center point of this line and the center point of this line. Or I'm not the center point, just this vertical line. And that's going to scooch it over right into the center just like that. So I'm going to hit escape. That looks good so far. I'm going to move these 2 in a little bit now. And maybe I'm going to do the same thing here. So I'm going to create a point on this one for the center here. Oh, yep, it's a little bit off. And then use a coincidence tool to place it right there. That looks pretty good. I'm a little worried that this, let me check my measurement here on the 9-volt battery. I'm going to actually clip the end of the battery wire, the battery cable on there so I can see how big the whole thing is. Yeah, I'll probably increase that. I think it was more like, for me, it's a different number. Okay, and that lets me know that I'm probably a little bit too close to those joysticks. So I'm going to just pull the joysticks out. And that's what you're doing. Now you're just fiddling to try to get whatever shape you want to get. I think that's pretty good. And that might be good right there. Yeah, so as you move things around, just play around with them. I need to put some holes in here. So I need to put a hole through it for the power thing. But I need to know how big this is. So I'm going to measure this as well. I forgot this one. That by that. So I'm going to grab a square or a rectangle. My power is going to go right about here. So I want mine. And, oh, I forgot them. Yep. Yep. And then I also need a hole cut for the LED to stick through. So I'm going to measure the bulb part. Notice that there's like a little flange here. Don't measure the diameter of that. That's going to hit against the plywood and keep the bulb from going all the way through. I'm just going to measure the bulb itself. Okay, I got mine. And this one I'm actually not going to do as a construction line because this is going to be actually cut through. So I'm going to put the hole right there. Beautiful. And then I need to put a hole in the middle of this. So this is the switch, so I know how big to make everything. So to find the center of this rectangle, I'm going to come grab a construction line and then drag the core from corner to corner. And then I'm going to make a hole big enough for the screws, the threaded part to go through. Okay. Got my measurements, and then I'm going to come here and put a hole in, except this time I'm not going to use a construction line because I want to actually cut a hole with this one. And there's that. So that all looks good. Again, I'm going to drag these measurements inside. I'm going to zoom back out and take a look. I think I can center this better. I'm going to just do a little bit of work here. If you want to center something between two things, here's a quick trick to do it. So I can come get a construction line. I can draw a construction line from perpendicular between the two objects on this side and perpendicular between the two objects from this side. So I've got two lines between the two things I want centered. And then I can just come here and use the equal tool and say I want this line to be equal to that line. And now they're the same distance apart. Now to do that, it chose to move the Arduino over to the right, not this over to the left, that's just like you have to live with what it wants to do sometimes. Might be able to mess with that if I drag this. Yeah, I drag this over. You can see now it's centering that. It's keeping that nice and centered in there. But yeah, I think that looks pretty good. All right, so now it's time. Well, that's it for this video. Play around with things, fiddle around with stuff, get everything kind of where you think you want it. Make sure you're giving yourself a little bit of space between your components. And once you get that done, yay, we're almost all the way there.